Hey guys, this is Matt Invictus. I'm recording my first movie vlogs. This is also the first time I've gone to the movies twice in one day. I really enjoyed it. I'll probably do it again. So the first movie I saw was Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Now, the original Kingsman is one of my favorite movies of the decade. I really enjoyed it. I think it did a great job being an homage to like the old spy genre, while also staying grounded in the present. I really enjoyed the humor of the film. It was a great R-rated action film, probably my favorite movie genre of all time. So I had high expectations for the sequel. I thought the trailers looked great, and I was surprised and disappointed to see Kingsman 2 getting such a negative reception. A lot of people saying that not only was it inferior to the original, but that it wasn't a good movie at all. So that was very disappointing. But the thing is, I loved this movie. I only liked the original Kingsman slightly better than this one. I thought it was a worthy follow up. Again, it's slightly worse than the original, but it is by no means a letdown sequel. It is not as bad as Men in Black 2. It's not as bad as Mission Impossible 2. It's not even as bad as Iron Man 2. It is I think, a very worthy follow-up to the original Kingsman. Now, it does have a couple of problems. I think it was a bit too long. It was a bit bloated. They could have cut some stuff from the film, and I think that would have made it better. And the humor in this movie was slightly more juvenile than the original. It lost some of the wit that made the original so good, but not to the extent that it ruined the film. It wasn't like an Adam Sandler movie or anything where it's just like these like horrible poop jokes and stuff everywhere. So it's slightly less witty than the first, but again, not enough to ruin the film. And it may have suffered from overuse of the word fuck. And anyone who knows me, if I'm saying something overuses the word fuck, that's saying a lot. But again, it didn't ruin the movie. It's a great sequel. And not just in the sense that it's a worthy follow-up to the original, it really works as a sequel. It uses a lot of stuff from the original, like references a lot of characters and plot points from the first movie, while also doing its own thing. It doesn't feel like a retread of the first Kingsman. So again, the whole thing is very well put together. I think that the people making this film knew exactly what they were doing. They put a lot of effort into the script and the direction. Has a good use of foreshadowing. It's a very competently made movie. It's like doesn't feel rushed or unprofessional in any way. It's it's a bit sillier and more over the top than the original. It takes all the goofy elements from the first Kingsman and kind of turns them up to 11. But most of it works. I mean, there were a couple moments where I was like kind of rolling my eyes at how silly it was, but for the most part, it works as an over-the-top movie. The original Kingsman, it had Colin Firth murdering a bunch of crazy right-wing fundamentalist racists in a church while Leonard Skinner was playing. This one has Colin Firth and Taron Egerton murdering a bunch of goons in a cheesy 1950s recreation in the jungle while Elton John played. So you can kind of see like how it's trying to one-up the original film, but again, it's not bad. The villain in the movie is Julianne Moore. I thought she was a pretty good camp villain, not quite as good as Samuel L. Jackson in the first, but I thought she did a good job. All the returning characters from the first movie were portrayed well. Colin Firth was a lot of fun. I think Taron Egerton, who plays the lead, very good leading man. Film has pretty good use of Elton John. He has a glorified cameo in the movie. He has some pretty entertaining moments. So again, ignore the critics and the horrible reviews. I think this has like a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is ridiculous. It is so much better than a 50%. So ignore all that. Ignore all that stuff. Go see Kingsman 2. Now, the other movie I saw was the remake of Stephen King's It. Now, I am a big horror junkie. I watch a lot of horror movies, and at first I could not have cared less about the It remake. I was not a fan of the original. I thought Tim Curry was a pretty entertaining villain, but the whole thing was just too campy, too cheesy. and it's not nearly as scary as it wanted to be. I didn't think the original was scary at all, and it just had too many ridiculous elements. I think it was pretty weak even for a Stephen King adaptation. So for the longest time, I just did not give a damn about the It remake. It was a remake of a crappy TV miniseries based on a Stephen King story. It was just the least interesting film in the world to me, and I was extremely surprised to see that not only was it getting great reception, but it was, I think, the highest grossing horror movie of all time. So that blew me away. I was like, a remake of a bad miniseries based on a Stephen King book, highest grossing horror film of all time, and it's actually really good. So I'm like, I've got to see this. And I have to say, I am not easily scared by horror movies because, again, I watch so many of them. But there were some scenes in this that made me shit my pants. This was a very genuinely intense and disturbing horror film. Pretty fucking scary. Again, a couple scenes of this movie just gave me the chills. It was clear from the very first scene in the It remake that it was so much more mature and brutal and intense than the miniseries was. It took all the corny moments from the original and just turned them up to 11. I mean, it was filled with scenes and moments from original, the original It, and I'm assuming the novel too. But it is just such a drastically different take. The thing I compare it to, the movie I'd compare this one to is the Fly remake from 1986, which was itself a remake of a cheesy 50s horror film. So it took that and it just took all the, like, kind of goofy, silly elements and just made them so visceral and disturbing and intense. So this is what it reminds me of more than anything. I thought that the child actors in the original miniseries were competent. I'd say the ones in the remake were on par with them. All the stuff with the kids was very well done. Well, I mean, if there was one major problem I had with the remake and with the original miniseries too, is that the kids are just too brave to be normal kids. Like, if any normal kid was seeing half the crazy shit these ones were seeing, they'd all be in a psych ward. They're just too brave to be realistic. But I mean, they kind of have to be for the story to work, so I'm willing to give it a pass. The actor who plays the clown in this one, a lot scarier than Tim Curry was. Again, I love Tim Curry. He's a great actor, but I found his version of Pennywise to be much more funny than anything. I thought he was a camp villain. This Pennywise actually, again, makes the audience shit its pants a few times. So the whole thing had a great direction, like this director, great understanding of the horror genre. It's not a jump scare fest. It's got a few of those, but it is a genuinely intense and chilling horror movie. Up until now, my all-time favorite modern horror film was The Conjuring. I think that came out in 2013. I'd say this is on par with that. I might need to rewatch The Conjuring, but at the moment, I'd say it's as good as that one. So it's clearly one of the best modern horror films I've ever seen. Definitely one of the best Stephen King adaptations. I think I still like The Shining slightly more, but this is definitely in at least the top 5 Stephen King movies, maybe even the top 3. I'd say it's like the second or third best Stephen King movie in my mind. So, and also I want to say it is great to see so many R-rated movies making a lot of money at the box office, because for most of my life, all the most successful films were PG-13, and in the last couple of years that had gotten really annoying. It's just mediocre PG-13 film after the other. So it's great to see R-rated films making so much money now. It started with Deadpool last year, and this year alone we've gotten Get Out, we've gotten Logan, Baby Driver, Atomic Blonde, and now Kingsman and It. Like, all R-rated movies making great money. So that's really great to see, and I hope this lasts. And most of them are very good on top of that. So I feel like I'm growing up in like the 80s or 90s, where we're just getting all these great R-rated movies every year. So I'm actually very happy with the film industry at the moment. I mean, I know like a lot of the like really high budget stuff isn't isn't that great, but it's like kind of like smaller budgeted films like It and Baby Driver and Logan and all that. Those are very satisfying. So I'm actually having a very good time at the movies this year. So thanks for watching and be sure to subscribe. Good night, everybody.